Welcome back. Come on in here. Welcome back to Real Shame, a show where we talk about our list of movie blind spots. But this month, because it's October, we're focusing all on horror movies. Might have seen them, might not have seen them. Some of them we haven't seen, some of them we have seen, whatever the case may be. But we are focusing on all horror movies all this month. It's our second week. And this month, we're going to be diving into some remakes of classic horror films. Tell you about the first remake that we're going to do. Oh, by the way, I'm Andy.
And I'm Adam.
I didn't say that.
Oh, no worries.
To tell us about the first movie that we're going to talk about this week, I'll toss it over to Adam.
All right. A shy girl, outcast by her peers, sheltered by a religious mother, unleashes telekinetic terror on her small town after being pushed too far at her senior prom. And that person is Carrie.
Are you feeling better? Can I get you some aspirin? Some juice or something?
Juice? Really, Henry?
Maybe you just want us to leave you alone.
Carrie, honey, I am so sorry that I slapped you. I should have handled it better. You know, it's totally normal for young girls to get their periods. It usually actually happens a little bit earlier. Is this your first time?
We're watching Carrie this week, not the 1974 version of Carrie that most people are familiar with Sissy Spacek. We're watching the remake, and you might catch...
The second remake.
The second remake, yeah. That's true, yeah. You might catch a little theme of that going on this week. So we're watching, the 2013 version of Carrie. It is directed by Kimberly Pierce, and it's written by Roberto Aguilar. Was that Sacasa? Sacasa. This is based, like the other iterations of Carrie, on the 1974 novel by Stephen King. It wasn't the first novel that he wrote, but it was the first novel that got published, is my understanding of it. And the movie that most people are probably familiar, there was a TV movie that was in 2002, 2010?
2002 is the Angela Bettis one, yeah.
There was a TV movie that came out in 2002. But I think the movie that most people think about Carrie or that are familiar with is the 1976 movie directed by Brian De Palma, starring Sissy Spacek as Carrie and Piper Laurie as her mother. Have you seen the 1976? Have you seen any of the prior iterations of Carrie?
I have read the novel Carrie,
Okay.
although that was like 30 years ago, so I don't remember a whole lot. And I have seen the Brian De Palma movie probably 3 or 4 times.
Okay, and you've not seen the...
Not seen any of the remakes and not seen any of the sequels or whatever. So it's all new to me.
And I had not seen the 76 movie until this week. I actually watched that before I watched this movie. Because, yeah.
That was a good idea.
Yeah, I gave it some... I tried to give it some distance, but I did end up watching the 76 movie before this one. So I knew about that. I knew... You know, I think it's part of the zeitgeist, so I knew what Carrie was about, but then I saw the 76 movie and saw this one.
Yeah.
Mr. Aguilar Sacasa, he looks like he's written a lot of TV. So he was on the writing staff of Big Love. He wrote Glee. He wrote Riverdale. He wrote Supergirl. So a lot of those minus Big Love, teen-centric dramedies and all that kind of stuff. And then Kimberly Pierce, she is famous for directing Boys Don't Cry, which I think made a big splash in the awards season.
Yeah.
I think Hilary Swank won for that.
Oh, yeah. I never knew who Hilary Swank was before that movie.
Yeah.
And I don't think most people did.
And I've actually never seen Boys Don't Cry. And also Stop Loss, which I've heard the title, but I've never seen the movie, so I don't know that from Adam. And that's me. This reimagined version of Carrie stars Julianne Moore as Margaret White, the mother. Chloe Grace Moretz. Oh man, I used to know how to say it. Chloe Grace Moretz as Carrie White, Gabriella Wilde as Sue Snell, Portia Doubleday as Chris Hargan, Ansel Elgort as Tommy Ross, and this is apparently, according to IMDb, his film debut. And we'd see him later as Baby Driver.
Baby Driver.
And
in West Side Story.
In West Side Story, yeah.
Weakest part of that movie.
And yeah. And also Judy Greer, it's good to see her as Miss Desjardins. It's a movie that I have not seen prior to this week. And have you seen it prior to this week? You have not. But it's your episode, so I'm gonna toss it over to you. What did you know anything about this 2013 version of Carrie before going into it, and what are your overall thoughts of this 2013 Carrie?
I knew Chloe Grace Moretz was in it because she's front and center on the cover.
Yes.
I didn't know Julianne Moore played the mother, and I didn't know that I didn't know anybody else that was. I mean, I didn't know who else was in it. I obviously know who Ansel Elgort is and some of these other people, but I didn't know who else was in it besides Chloe Grace Moretz. And I had forgotten that they did the one with Angela Bettis back in 2002. I've not seen that one either. And there's the Rage Carrie 2,
Yes.
which came out in like '99, which I've never seen either. So
And
I've only seen the Brian De Palma one.
And that's the girl from Charmed in it.
Sure. Yeah. I have no idea.
Yeah.
Sounds good to me.
What's her name?
But yeah, this movie, I knew that Chloe Grace Moretz was in it, and that was about it. I mean, I'd forgotten about this. I think when it came out,
Alyssa Milano.
Oh, Alyssa Milano, yeah. When it came out in 2013, I think I was like, another Carrie movie?
Yeah.
Pass. I don't really care. I did the same thing with the other movies that we're going to talk about this week. I was like, what do I care about watching this?
Yeah.
So I've just never watched it until we decided to sit down and plan on what we're going to watch for October.
That's right.
But obviously I know the story. Like I said, I've read the novel, even though it has been about 30 years ago. But I mean, I still remember the basic plot points thanks to the Brian De Palma movie, which I've seen several times. So going into this, I mean, I know we've talked about sequels and remakes before on this show because we've done some sequels, and have we done remakes before? I feel like we have. Maybe.
Oh yeah, we
so
have.
So we've done sequels and remakes, and those are always tricky because you're trying to take what you know from the original movie. Like in the case of a sequel, you're taking the original characters, and you have to have enough kind of callbacks to the first film that people enjoyed, to make people's hearts all warm and fuzzy, but you have to take them in a new direction. And with remakes, I think it's even more difficult because typically they remake movies that are good to begin with, especially, remaking things like Psycho, which is really odd to me, but they take movies that are already considered good. Like I think most people like Carrie, the Brian De Palma one. And it's like you have to retain the same kind of premise, but take it in some fresh new direction. I think they do a great job with Dawn of the Dead, for example. Zack Snyder still takes place in a shopping mall, but the characters and situations are different.
Yeah.
I mentioned RoboCop last week or the week before. I like the RoboCop remake, even though I love the original, because I feel like they do enough different things with it. Yes, they have the same basic premise. A guy gets blown to pieces. He's made into this robotic cop, and whatnot. But the storyline and everything kind of diverges in the remake. So a movie like this, it's like, are they going to take it in a new direction, or are they going to do whatever? And I mean, this movie, they don't really take it in a new direction.
Yeah. It's
very, very similar to at least the Brian De Palma one, and I'm assuming it's very similar to the one with Angela Bettis in it. I don't know who directed that, but I mean, I liked this one. It was okay. I feel like I'm about to sneeze. I am. Oh, woo, thank you. I like this one okay. So I'll say this. I'm not a giant fan of the Brian De Palma one. I know the Brian De Palma one is like a beloved horror classic, but I've never been like... Yes, I have seen it several times just because it's old, and I've happened to see it probably around, October in various years. But I'm not like, oh, Carrie... My God, what an amazing film. Yeah. I think it's okay. I think some of the Brian De Palma shtick just does not work in that movie.
Dude, it's so bad in this movie. There's so many of those split diopter shots.
Yeah, there's a lot, that kind of stuff. And, we mentioned this when we watched Casualties of War. Yeah. I just feel like he's not right for some movies that he directs. I'm not sure that he was right for the original Carrie. I don't hate it, though. And I actually do like even though it's like mostly split screen, I actually do like the prom sequence in that film. I do.
I mean, I feel like that's classic.
Yeah, I like that. But a lot of the other Brian De Palma stuff, I'm like, eh.
I wish my only downside of the Brian De Palma prom sequence is I wish he used more blood. Yeah. It feels like they had one shot to get it right, and it kind of missed. It didn't get it very good because I think that's something that this Carrie does better. Is there's way more than that blood that lands on Carrie than would be in that bucket,
right?
But it looks so much better, right?
Yeah.
So I wish that was the one thing that kind of was like, oh, I wish they figured out a way to get more blood on her and make it look more, bigger than it actually was. But
And back then, as another a little side note to the 1976 one, Sissy Spacek had to sleep with all of that blood dried on her. Or, I mean, obviously fake blood, but all that dried on her for like a few nights in a row while they were filming that. Just to get it right. So she had to live like that for a few days
for like continuity's sake and all that kind of stuff. Yeah.
Right, which that'd be pretty gross. But so the things I liked about the 2013 one, I liked the improved special effects. I mean, some of it still looks pretty cheesy. But I like, there's some cool special effects from time to time. I like the fact that obviously it's 2013, so they're using technology. Like in this case, not only do they throw tampons at her in the shower, but they film it and then they post it online, which is obviously something they would do in this day and age. Yes. And then when they're at the prom, they play the video like on the screens. So it's really, really super humiliating. So I like all that stuff. I like and obviously we're spoiling things because we always spoil movies on the show. So please, don't watch if you haven't seen this. But when she kills the Portia Doubleday character and her boyfriend in the original film, well, I don't want to spoil it in the original film because we're not reviewing it, but it's different. It's slightly different in the original film, although they do try and run her over in both movies. In this one, it's a little bit more gruesome.
It's a little bit over the top,
over the top. But of course, I was like cracking up. I thought it was hilarious.
Okay.
But the things that I did not like about this film is, I mean, despite the fact that it has, kind of cool special effects, and I like the ability to use technology and stuff like that, it doesn't really do much differently besides that. I mean, it's essentially the same story. I don't think that Chloe Grace Moretz improves on what Sissy Spacek did. And I think Sissy Spacek, and this is not a knock on Sissy Spacek, this is going to sound terrible, but Sissy Spacek, at least in the movie, Carrie, looks way more homely and whatnot, I think. And like Chloe Grace Moretz just looks like a normal, just kind of shy girl. Like she's not unattractive enough, right? And then I don't think that I think Julianne Moore's a fine actress, but I don't think she does any better than Piper Laurie did in the '76 version.
I think that's what Kirby's big complaint about Carrie was about Chloe Grace Moretz just doesn't look like she would be an outcast. At the school at all.
No,
she just looks like
Sissy Spacek does.
Yeah,
I don't think Chloe Grace Moretz does.
A little alien, honestly.
Yeah. So I mean that kind of bothers me because I just don't buy it. So. Overall, I mean, I thought this was okay. I mean, it's far from the worst remake I've ever seen. I mean, for some really bad remakes, I think about
we'll get there.
Last year when I watched Black Christmas, the most recent Black Christmas.
Yeah, I think we watched it.
It's horrible. We watched the original, the remake is awful. I mean, this is a far cry from that. I would say this was pretty watchable. I enjoyed it for the most part overall. It just didn't blow me away. And even though I'm not a huge fan of the Brian De Palma one, I didn't think this was any better than that.
Gotcha.
So, what about you?
It's a lot. Let me talk about the De Palma film real quick because I watched that too.
First time viewing.
The first thing, a lot of De Palma isms in it.
Yes.
The thing I found the most interesting is the opening scene where we're in the girls' bathroom and they're all naked, and then you realize that these are people that have yet to graduate high school, so these are supposed to be under 18-year-old girls. A little creepy.
Well, they're played by adults.
They're played by adults, but little creepy to be lingering on nude high schoolers. I mean, it's for its time. It just. For me, that was like, okay, like that's weird in this context. Okay. But I'm with you. I think I like the De Palma film's okay. I think the De Palma isms kind of take it a little bit away from me a little bit, but I'm not the biggest fan of. I think I need to find a Brian De Palma movie I like. That's my charge, is to find one that I like of his, so I could maybe use that to spin up other things. But I think for what it is, I'm with you. It's okay. It's not a great movie. It's not terrible, all that kind of stuff. This remake of Carrie, for me, it feels like I don't think Chloe Grace Moretz does as good of a job as Sissy Spacek. And I want to caveat that with saying that she was actually 15 apparently when she shot this. So she was really, really young. Sissy Spacek, I think, was 25.
Yeah. So,
I mean, it's hard, when you're younger, it's hard to be, acting's hard, right? And it's a talent and skill that's
no excuse, Adam.
Yeah.
So, look at Claire Danes in My So-Called Life. Exactly. She was amazing.
So she's just kind of, she doesn't do a very good job of anchoring the movie for me. So it's kind of hard that this whole movie is focused on her, and I don't think she does a great job. I think before this, she did the was it Let the Right One In or whatever? It was like her big one that was a remake.
Yeah, she did do that. That's
that
right.
was like the one that like introducing Chloe Grace Moretz. I like Chloe Grace Moretz. This movie, I don't think she's very strong in. I also don't think Julianne Moore is very strong in it. She's kind of, they're trying to make her a little bit more crazy than really more crazy than more like super religious conservative, which I understand, but it just didn't really work for me. I like what you said about the modernization. I really like that stuff. The phone stuff. I mean, obviously that's child porn. She would get arrested for posting that on the web. But you know, the movie doesn't really want to dig into that at all. I feel like the CGI and all that stuff is kind of excessive and unneeded. Like, I feel like you could retell this story in, you know, modern day and not have to use all the computer generated effects and all that kind of stuff. And to me, all that stuff didn't really bring a whole lot to the movie. Like her floating the books, and like I have seen in your notes, and it was something that I also have issues with like she goes from not having powers to having powers pretty quickly.
Terrific with them.
And she's like lifting the bed and all these books and all this kind of stuff, and she's like tearing the door. I mean, she could put like 11 and her could fight, you know, the underside all together really well, you know?
So, since you watched the De Palma movie recently, does Sissy Spacek do anything like that in the original movie? Because I couldn't remember anything like that.
Yeah, I don't think she does. I feel like there's a shot where she kind of does something. I know, but I don't feel like it's as big as like levitating a bed and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I felt like I was watching Chronicle or something for a second.
It was very Chronicle, especially like at the end where she's like pushing her girl. Yeah. And of course I put in there like, oh, she threw up in the bathroom, she's got to be pregnant. And of course she was. Yeah. So I feel like the effects are kind of excessive, and I don't think you need that over the top those computer graphics to make this movie modern. In fact, the movie that we're doing Friday, doesn't use computer effects and actually goes for physical effects, and I think that worked. And I think you can do the same thing here in Carrie, and you know, to do it. So like the death scene, like with Chris, is completely over the top and like unnecessary in my book. Like, it doesn't really add anything to it.
Yeah, I just thought it was hilarious.
Yeah.
I get a kick out of it. You know me.
Yeah, no, I totally. The thing that I got mostly from this movie is I want to make a Carrie movie really bad, because I just feel like both movies kind of leave stuff on the table. And what that is I really feel like you don't get a lot of Carrie being ostracized. Like you get, and me saying that is, you get obviously like the tampon throwing and stuff like that, but I want to see like other scenes like of her being ostracized, or the reason why the kids are picking on her and stuff like that.
Yeah, I agree.
Like,
with
I don't
that.
feel like I don't feel like we spend a lot of time of Carrie, you know, before the powers kick in, or before she goes crazy, like of what it's like to be Carrie, right? I feel like both movies really shorten that, and I wish we would spend more time and understand really what Carrie's life is like before that, right?
I agree with that. I thought that also when I was watching this film, because the prom sequence takes up so much of both movies.
Yeah.
They give everything else kind of short shrift. And so, it would be nice to see some kind of lead up to that.
And exactly. And for me, so my pitch for the Carrie thing is obviously more reasons for her to be ostracized, and I have some ideas of like things she would do because of her mother that would make her ostracized from the classmates. I think it would be really interesting if we don't show the Tommy and them getting the pig blood and all that kind of stuff, and it's more of a surprise. Mm-hmm. Like, I wonder if that would play better than, because in both movies you see them, like, I think it would be really cool if you see them walking by the butcher plant or the whatever, and that's it. Like it's in the background. It's not something that we really focus on, and then it leads to that, and it's kind of like an Easter egg.
Yeah.
And the other thing is, I think it'd be really interesting if the powers to everyone else but Carrie seems like it could be just things going wrong. Like if the gymnasium catches on fire, maybe it was because the boiler overheated or a pipe burst and it did all that kind of stuff. Like, I would think it'd be interesting if the manifestation of her powers really just looked like things were malfunctioning and breaking and all that kind of stuff, rather than like, in the De Palma movie, she's controlling a hose. And in this movie, I feel like they play it down a little bit. No, she lifts up Judy Greer's character.
Yeah.
Like, and stuff like that.
She takes like the moon
Yeah,
that's on fire and
yeah.
like throws it at the girl.
Exactly.
She's very much like in control.
She's like Jean Grey and stuff.
Yeah.
So for me, my pitch would be that. I think it would be interesting to kind of play it like, oh, does she actually have supernatural powers, or is she just like in this kind of situation where this kismet of things happen and stuff happen? Like, for me, that's my pitch.
Yeah.
But that's neither here nor there. But that's kind of what this movie made me think of when I was watching it.
I like that.
But yeah, so for me, I feel a little bit. I feel a little bit cooler on the movie than you do. I do think it's, if you're interested, it's worth watching, but I don't think it brings anything to the mix that makes it worthy of, not worthy of being made. I don't think it brings anything to that isn't already there. That's more interesting than what existed before. So that's kind of where I fall.
No, I agree with you. I mean, I don't think it's any better than the Brian De Palma movie. In the Brian De Palma movie, I'm just like, look, they're okay. So I will say, and again, don't want to spoil the ending of the Brian De Palma one because we're not reviewing that, but I do like the ending of that one, the very ending of that one. This one, I wish they would have just copied it because they copied a lot of other things. I wish they would have just done the same thing.
It feels
in
like
this film.
It feels like they're like, everyone's expecting us to do the Palma ending, so we're going to subvert it a little bit,
But
and they just
didn't do anything really hardly.
Yeah,
I mean, they just show her like her grave, and I think it like has like a little crack in it.
Yeah.
She's causing an earthquake underground or something. But I was like, that's stupid.
Because we're waiting for Carrie 2: The Revenge or whatever. Firestarter.
I guess. But no, I was waiting for because I was like, well, they've lifted so much else from the original movie. Go ahead and lift the original ending. I'm fine with it.
The other thing is like, it seems like her damage in this new movie is not as big as the damage in the De Paul movie, because like Judy Greer's character lives. And
does she?
Yeah, she's like, there's a shot of her like with her arm in the sling outside the.
Oh, I didn't even notice. I thought she died.
No, yeah, so, I'm like, how did she survive that?
The original film, like everybody dies, right? Except for Amy Irving's character, because she gets pushed out. And so does the girl in this who winds up being pregnant. But in this movie, a lot more kids survive.
Yeah,
like she doesn't kill the whole class. Basically.
And I think that's wrong. I mean, because I think like Carrie's,
I know, kill them all.
I think it's supposed to be like super destructive, like it's supposed to disrupt the whole town.
Yeah.
And it feels like what happened in this movie isn't as big.
So if I'm not mistaken, in the book, she's actually outside
the whole time.
Yeah, and closes them all in the gym, and they all die.
Which
basically.
I understand wanting her in there, and it's hard not to do it.
She needs to be in there for a movie,
but I also think it'd be kind of cool to just see her from the outside. So maybe if you can like have your cake and eat it too.
It would be. Yeah, I don't know if it would be as powerful. Like the fact that she's up there on stage and it's just you know. Well, or in the case of Sissy Spacek, she's like staring, like doing a little stare, and like
scanners.
You know, the windows are closing and stuff. So, yeah, fun stuff.
So the only other thing that got me in this movie was the soap she was using. Is that community soap? I don't know if I would use soap that's just sitting in the girls' in the public restroom shower, that's just sitting in a dish.
Do they not do that in school? Like,
I don't know. I mean, I never took a shower in school.
Probably did. Well, yeah.
I don't know if I'd use soap that other people have used.
I don't think that's that uncommon in community showers.
And the other thing I found interesting is like in the '76 movie, there's smoking, like the principal smokes and stuff like that, and she like flips the ashtray. And in this movie, obviously, you don't have smoking in modern day movies, and you don't have smoking in modern day schools. So she has to like make the water burble or whatever behind her and explode. So I thought that was kind of interesting.
Yeah, that's true. Ready for the critics?
I am.
It is 50% fresh on Rotten Tomatoes, 44% audience. By comparison, the Brian De Palma film is 93% fresh with a 77% audience score. I did not find a Siskel and Ebert review. Well, sorry, they would not have reviewed the new one, but I didn't bother to look. I don't think for the old 1976 one. But Leonard Maltin gives the 2013 one 2 stars. But he's not that high on the Brian De Palma one. He only gives that one 2.5 stars.
Oh, he might be in our 2.5-star Martin Moulton. First of all,
He might be, yeah.
and he's in our. It sounds like he's with us on this one.
Yeah, I think so.
All right. Well, anything else you want to add about Carrie? No. So that was our first of. You want to tell them what our theme is this week?
I already did at the beginning. I think I spoiled it, but yes, we're doing remakes of classic horror films.
That's right.
We decided to do that.
So we watched a remake of Carrie. What movie are we watching on Wednesday? That is what remake are we watching on Wednesday?
Yeah, so back in the 80s when I was down with the ladies, back in 1982.
It was only the 80s that you were down with the ladies.
That's pretty much, yeah, pretty much. Back in 1982, there was a film directed by Tobe Hooper, Tobe, Tobe Hooper, and produced by Steven Spielberg, but maybe directed by Steven Spielberg, at least partially. And it's a beloved horror classic called Poltergeist. We decided to tackle the 2015 incarnation of Poltergeist starring Sam Rockwell and Jared Harris.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Well, stay tuned for that, guys. We appreciate you watching. Please like and subscribe. And we'll see you Wednesday with the episode that's about the remake of Poltergeist.
They're here.
We'll see you soon, guys. Bye.